Morning, Mr. Horwitz. Moshe Silbaft, how are you? Thank God. Good, excellent. That family that was coming to Kimberley to spend...
That's one of my Kimberley people, short of a rabbi for the High Holy Days. I make sure that whenever folk in the country need me, I'm just a call away. I never forget anyone, especially at this time of the year.
They'll be able to do everything adequately for your community.
Actually, when it comes to help, I sometimes need it myself, especially when there's a real chance of getting stuck.
This is a Colesberg Jewish cemetery. Colesberg was a main through route from the Cape to the Transvaal. This cemetery, it dates back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. People are buried here, or those obviously that didn't follow through to the Transvaal and established themselves here and eventually died in this town. One of my duties is to supervise and maintain the upkeep of Jewish cemeteries throughout South Africa. There are over 250 comprising of nearly 30,000 Jewish graves. Now, with the demise of the country communities, there are very few people, and in many cases there's nobody in fact left to look after these cemeteries. So by doing this, I like to think that it's maintenance free and vandalism free. The Jewish cemeteries are holy in our religion, and it is our responsibility to make sure that they are kept holy at all times.
Although Jews have an association with South Africa, going back to the very beginning of the country's history, the great wave of immigration came from Eastern Europe in the late 1800s. Over the next few decades, 40,000 Jews would arrive. The Russian persecution of the Jews, together with the lure of newly discovered riches in South Africa, created a push-pull scenario. The discovery of diamonds in Kimberley led to a migration of Jews from Cape Town northwards to the diamond fields. Once the Transvaal yielded its rich harvest of gold, Johannesburg became the largest Jewish center in South Africa. But many Jews found other opportunities in small country towns and simply remained.
Graaff-Reinet was a town that had the third Jewish community to establish itself in South Africa. The communal population waned off in the turn of the century, and in 1930 the community resuscitated itself, and it became necessary to even build a shul and a community center. Today, unfortunately, there is only one Jewish lady left by the name of Brenda Horwitz, and her husband was the first and only Jewish mayor of Graaff-Reinet.
Today, Brenda and I have arranged to meet Daniel Smith, a Gentile whose forefathers settled in these parts over 200 years ago.
Hi there.
Hello. All right, good to see you.
How are you doing?
Very nice to see you.
Look after this house, magnificent.
Yes, you know, I have sentimental value. You know, there's lots attached because there's a lot of history in the house, and that's why I didn't have the mezuzahs removed from the house. And the other door also, because two Jewish families lived in this house for 25 years.
Who was that?
Shermans.
Daniel Smith takes me to see the memorial to the Jewish peddler, a tribute to the itinerant traders who opened up the country's interior.
I believe that the only country in the world where there were these peddlers, the smosa, was in South Africa. I believe there were none in the United States of America. And what it came is you had these families who started, say, a business in Graaff-Reinet, and then satellite businesses in the towns surrounding it. And from there, you had the peddlers who operated down to the farms. And the peddler would sell anything, you know, from linen to canned fruit or whatever you want. You know, they brought the needs to the farms, where otherwise the farmer would only be able to come to town, or his wife, once in 3 months when they came for Holy Communion to the town. What my grandmother told me, you know, I mean, if it wasn't for the smokes, she wouldn't have had it, what she wanted, you know, I mean, even whether she wanted pepper or sugar or some condiments or whatever, something to bake some cakes or whatever, he had it. He was accepted as a long-awaited friend, and he didn't have to sleep, you know, with his little cart or whatever wagon that he came with. Yeah, he was a guest in the house, and he had his meal in the house, whatever they could offer him. An uncle of mine said once that he was asked, why do you support the Jew? And he said, because when I needed it, when I was most in need, it was the Jew who helped me.
Growing up among religious Afrikaner who looked up to the Jewish people as the chosen people, that alone contributed to the Jewish community having to become and hold themselves separate and as a unit. Now, how did they do it? Practically meant they established a little shul, they appointed a chairman. In many of the small communities, they had a reverend who came from Lithuania who could slaughter, who could teach the children. He did circumcisions, he was allowed to do weddings, etc. That all revolved around the community. When the chain stores moved in, smaller Jewish businesses found they couldn't compete. First the reverend left, then parents followed their children to the bigger centers where they could get a Jewish education. Today the Jewish cemetery in Graaff-Reinet is a national monument, a tribute to those who lived here, made their mark here, and died here.
This is my grandmother's grave, at whom I never knew. But they were quite a large family, my father, and they settled in different parts of South Africa. They all came from Russia. And they had a hotel here and had a business here, and they were in the, well, I think they were all smokers to a certain extent, but they didn't travel so much as the others did. They came from Russia because of the pogroms, no doubt. I imagine that's the one reason. As I say, I'm actually a very inquisitive person, but I never seem to ask. And what makes me mad is that my son used to say to my mother, who lived with us for 10 years in Graaff-Reinet, Granny, what was it like in Russia? And I say, Simon, stop worrying Granny. Granny was about 90 odd at that stage. Stop worrying her, and I'm so sorry I did that. Because they had no idea what it was like as when my family were in Russia. Of course, I don't know either.
Brenda's late husband Frank was not only the town mayor, he also owned a motor dealership. But now that she's the last remaining Jew in town, I wonder if Brenda will leave.
I just feel I belong. I mean, I go around nearly all the colours, for instance. They say, hello, Mrs. Horwitz. Ken jy nie vir my nie? I said, no. He said, ek het mos op Bos Frank gewerk. En voor dit vir jou pa. And that is the whole thing. I belong, whether I'm Jewish or whether I'm not Jewish, it really makes no difference.